Hi, my name is Tamara, and you are watching Things Even a Monkey Should Know. Thanks so much for watching again today. As you know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm not a professional at this do-it-yourself stuff. I'm just a girl who's figured out that there are a lot of things around the house and out in the yard and on my cars that I can do myself and save myself a good bit of time and usually some money too. So hopefully you've saved somewhere at this point as well. So today I'm not dressed in my usual standard attire because we're actually going to be doing something a little bit messy, or potentially messy. If you've watched a few of my other videos, you have probably picked up on the fact that I like color in a lot of places where people don't necessarily always put it. So today I am going to be painting my washing machine. So let's get started. So I just want to start out by showing you the difference in my washer and my dryer. My dryer is the piece that's currently painted right now, and I'm not going to paint the washer to match, but simply to be bright colors. So this is actually going to be a multi-day process because it does take time for the paint to set and cure. But now that you've kind of seen a little bit of where I'm going with this, I'm going to show you the things that we're going to need today. You're going to need some clothes that you don't really care if you get paint on them, because this was done with enamel paint, a really good high quality paint. I'll show you in a second. If it gets on you, I mean on your clothes, it is not coming out. So have raggedy clothes on or something. Part of this is going to involve disconnecting and moving the washer because the paint does have a pretty loud smell to it, and I don't want to do it in here in the main part of the house where I'm going to be smelling fumes for 5 days. So first thing you're going to definitely need a couple buckets, things just to catch the water from the hoses whenever we disconnect the washer. You will assuredly want to have a couple of rags handy. You will need to have your paint, and I chose to get this paint that's it's called One Shot, and let me just make sure that you can see it here. And it's a really great paint. It's a sign painter's sort of paint, so it's like what is used for painting on glass, things in storefronts and things like that. And also it's used for pinstriping cars. So like I said, it's got a pretty loud smell to it, but it works great and it's heat resistant and it's done really wonderfully on my dryer. So you'll need the colors of the paint that you want. I would highly recommend having paintbrushes, different paintbrushes for each color that you use, because this stuff is such strong colors that if you try to just simply wipe your brush off and then dip it into another color, you're just going to wind up with a big bunch of muddy colors because they'll just get into each other. You'll want tape so that you can tape off either designs or, designs, I guess. You'll want to have mineral spirits for sure, because you'll need these to clean your brushes, and if you have any spills, you need mineral spirits to be able to clean up this paint. You might want, I'm not going to use this because I really like the viscosity of this paint. It's got a really nice, it goes on fairly thickly. You have to do 2 coats, but if for some reason you wanted it to go on a little more thin, you can either get this, if you're using this brand, which there are other brands, this is just the one that I found I really like. They have this stuff called ChromaFlow, which just thins out the paint a bit. You can also just get regular linseed oil, which they sell at your local home improvement store in the paint section. So you don't actually need to get this, I found out later. Let's see. I guess the last thing that you might need is just a couple of throwaway plastic containers, because you will need something to put your brushes in and clean them. And if you're going to be mixing colors at all, then you will want something to mix your colors in. And these colors do actually mix together very well. They're very pure and very true pigment. So if you were to start mixing, then again, you would want some kind of a container in which to do this. And of course you'll want your thing that you're going to be painting. In my case, it is my white washing machine, because I do not really like white appliances. They bother me. I have color everywhere, like I said, and like you guys have seen. And so we're just gonna do this. It's gonna be fun. So dryers are not so terribly heavy, but washers are pretty unpleasantly heavy because they've got this big heavy motor in them. So one other thing that you're going to want to have if you're going to be moving your washer out of where it is right now is a dolly, a furniture dolly of some sort. But so we're going to go ahead and walk it out. Okay, you guys are going to have to forgive me moving you around a little bit, but this is really important to show you because, you know, if for some reason you do need to disconnect your washer for another reason, you always want to make sure you turn off the water to it, because otherwise you're going to have a big, horrible mess. And you just turn it off like a regular faucet, all the way to the right on both sides, so that you don't wind up with water all over the floor. Okay, so we have that done. So now the next thing that we want to do is to disconnect the hoses from the back of the washing machine. And this is also where you want to have a bucket. Okay, and also I forgot to mention a pair of channel locks would be very helpful, because you'll probably, this will be beyond hand height. But you'll want to have, so your bucket and your channel locks back here so that you can just get this started. And there's going to be some residual water in the line. That's why you want to have a bucket. Okay, and then the last thing is just, we're going to leave the drain attached to the washer, but it shouldn't be attached to the hose like that. Ouch. But we do need to take the drain line with us, and again, if it goes down very low, it is going to wind up dumping water out on the floor. So we can either stuff it into the washing machine for the moment, but this is what the second bucket is for, so that you can collect it down there later. So once you've done that, make sure that you unplug your washer from the wall. It should just have a regular little wall plug. And now our goal is to get it out far enough that we can get it up on the dolly. I'm just gonna do this, tilt it back. Ooh, I can hear water in it. This is water that will come out of the drain line whenever given the opportunity. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and walk it up onto the dolly. So I am going to go ahead and remove the drain line and just put it down in the other bucket to catch any water that decides to come out of it, because I promise water will come out of it. And I'm going to go ahead and wipe down everything. If you have a little bit of alcohol, you might go ahead and put that on your rag just to get off any oils or dirt and fingerprints, to make sure that you don't wind up with that in your paint job. So now is the time where you mark off your design if you have one. If you're just going to paint the panels solid, then you can do that too. But you can tape it off. You could print out designs on your computer that have little appliques and things like that. I am going to do a really simple design, and if I can find what I did with my tape. And so I'm just going to go ahead and measure that off and mark it off. And the rest of it, I'm kind of letting the shapes and the imprints on the washer itself kind of guide me as far as what I do for the rest of it. So you may be asking, why am I doing this inside instead of outside? Because the fumes are pretty terrible. Well, I am in a part of the house that I can close off from the rest of the house, and I'm going to have this door, which you cannot see, but that's behind you, open, and I have a pretty strong fan that I'm going to have blowing past me to blow things out. The reason I don't want to do it outside is that this is a really sticky paint, and as with all paint, it seems that every bug within 50 miles is attracted to it, and I don't want bugs stuck all in my paint. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start the first coat, and like I said, this is going to take several days to do the entire process, because, well, for one thing, I'm not in a hurry, and for another thing, I want it to look pretty reasonably decent whenever I'm finished, and hurrying along paint like this is not a good way to get a really nice paint job. One other thing, as far as thinning it out. If you apply this with a roller, you're not going to get brush strokes. If you thin it out, you won't get brush strokes. Personally, I don't care. They're not noticeable. But it does depend on how thick your paint is. This one sounds like it's reasonably thin, but it's just something to note. So if you want to make sure, and the roller is still going to leave a slight little stippling pattern. It's really impossible to get a completely smooth surface unless you take your washer or whatever in and have it powder coated. That's not something I'm going to do because I would much rather do this myself. So it was just a few notes, but let's go ahead and get started with this. It's going to be fun. So when it does come time to clean your brushes, which I wait until I'm done with the color that I'm using, to actually clean them. So they've been sitting in the mineral spirits for a while. Probably, technically, you shouldn't leave them as long as I've left these, but the brushes are kind of old, so I don't care quite as much. But normally you don't want to leave them sitting in mineral spirits for more than a day or two because it can actually loosen the glues up here and make the bristles fall out of the brushes. So if you have really nice brushes, you'll wind up messing them up. But so the first thing that I do after I take them out of the mineral spirits, so I go ahead and I squeeze out, and you want to have a glove on so that you don't get paint all over your hands. I go ahead and I squeeze out just as much of the mineral spirits as I can. And then after that, and also this removes a good bit of the pigment that's still stuck in the brushes, pigment being the paint. And I do this until the brush is pretty well cleaned. And then you still have that greasy, oily feeling on it though. And that is when you want to have a really good grease cutting dish soap of some sort. And then after that, you just rub that soap through it. And you'll have to do it several times, kind of like you're shampooing the brush's hair. And then you'll just want to go ahead and spray it off. And like I said, it's going to take several times because you'll keep seeing a lot of pigment running out of this. It's going to be watered down enough. I'm not concerned about it getting into the ground because also there's not, actually this one doesn't have that much left. I did a really good job getting the pigment out of here. So you just do that, like I said, until it's clean. And then you'd want to dry it. Well, dry it as best you can. I am going to shampoo this one again. And then whenever you let it dry, always dry bristles down, or you can dry it laying flat. Don't ever dry it like this because it won't actually dry and the water will run up into the top of it where the bristles are held in. And it'll wind up loosening those bristles. So one other thing, a good question probably is, what do you do with the mineral spirits after you're done with them? Because obviously you don't want to pour them down the drain because they're kind of poisonous. So you have a couple of options. Well, I would say about 3 right off the top of my head. You can call your local municipality and ask them, where do I dispose or how do I dispose of mineral spirits? If you have anybody that you know of who has any connection to a school that teaches art, they are going to have a big drum where they collect mineral spirits and other things like that have to do with painting. And they will very likely let you pour your used mineral spirits in there. Yay! So this officially took probably 5 days, as you saw, to get it completely painted, and then I let it dry for an additional 3 days just to make sure that I didn't miss, you know, a drip or something, and then grab it and it smeared everywhere and messed everything up. So here we are, back where we were in the beginning. I'm gonna reconnect this just like we did in the beginning, where you just want to make sure that you have the appropriate hoses connected to the appropriate outlets back here. And as I'm sure that you saw the first time around, one side says C and one says H, and so that should correspond to the side, you know, of your to the way that your connections are put into the wall. And one other thing is that, you know, most of these washers these days have kind of wimpy plastic connectors back here on the back. So while you want to get this reasonably tight, you do not want to over tighten it, or else you will wind up snapping off the connector back here, and well, nobody wants that, because that means that your washer is pretty much ruined. So just be careful and don't over tighten. So let's go ahead and turn it on. Make sure it doesn't leak before I get out from back here. And that's the cold side. You want to turn the spigots all the way to on. Just again, making sure they don't leak. And there's the hot side, and it doesn't leak either, so that's very good. And if they leak, it shouldn't be a big deal. That's why we have a little bit of a rag. And all that you would do is just tighten them just a hair more. And these aren't, but... And then I'm going to carefully walk this washer back off the dolly. So then the last things that we're going to do, of course, we want it to be able to work. We want it to be able to drain. So do not forget to put your drain line, and it's just a hose sort of thing that just fits down into a hole in your wall. And that is it. And then plug it in, and you have what looks like a new custom washer, which is pretty awesome. So I've gotten the question a lot after I've done something like painting a dryer, painting a washer, why would you even do that? Because it doesn't contribute to the function. And my answer is, why wouldn't I do it? Why wouldn't I want to make things in my house look more unusual, or in my life in general, or make them more pleasant to use? Because hey, guess what? I think it's a lot more fun to use a colorful washer than it is to use just a plain white one. But hey, that's just me. Anyway, I hope that gave you some good ideas for stuff that you might like to do, and let you know that it's okay to do that. Because sometimes, you know, you think about doing something that seems a little crazy, and everybody will kind of stomp on your idea, and so you just go ahead and do it, and it'll be great, I promise. So I hope you enjoyed today's show, and thanks very much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed already, there is a subscribe button floating somewhere on this general side of the screen. YouTube keeps changing the location, so I'm not going to give a specific placement anymore except this side of the screen. Thanks very much to everybody who has already subscribed, and like I said, thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great week, and I'll see you again soon.